All right, the final point here, we are going to Astute Poster Star Viego. Jeremy and Brett and the trouble with SWAT. So, straight to the documentation here. When the shooters entered the cafeteria after the initial volley of shots outside, many of the students and adults sought shelter in the smaller rooms on the west side of the kitchen. Starting with the southernmost room, we have 1, the faculty lounge bathroom, accessible from the faculty lounge only, and then 2, the kitchen bathroom. 3, the dishwashing room mop closet. 4, the kitchen office storage room, and then to the east of that, 5, the refrigerator, and 6, the freezer. Jeremy Mullen, document 3809, hid in the kitchen bathroom along with Dustin Gorton, 3157, Michael Kish, 3454, Brett Kostelnik, 3475, Fletcher Woolsey, 4766, Julie Anderson, 2318, and possibly one more unknown person when the group decided to venture out after 45 minutes. Jeremy apparently decided to see if he could get students hiding in another room to leave with them. According to him, he knocked on the door and left with the others in his group when he couldn't get a response. Mullen went to the dishwashing room, banged on the door, and attempted to coax those hiding inside to leave with them. But the occupants of these rooms remember it differently. Matt DEPEW, 2825. Matthew stated a fellow student by the name of Jeremy Mullen came to the door and began pounding on it. Help, they're after me. They decided not to open the door and let him in because they were afraid of what was going on outside. Matthew stated he didn't know if Jeremy was taken as a hostage and it was a ploy for them to get the door open. DPO Lietz on the phone with DEPEW for virtually the entire time, document 2840. At one point, one of the suspects pretended to be Jeremy and attempted to trick his way in. That's weird. And why would someone say, they're after me? Help, they're after me? That's in the middle of a shooting, like they're after him specifically? I mean, that's just kind of a weird thing to say. Ryan Deathridge, what a name, 2807. Ryan Deathridge said someone knocked on the door where they were hiding and said to them that he needed in because he needed a place to hide. Shannon Ryan, 4267, stated at one point, Ryan told me that a student named Jeremy Mullen tried to get into the room with them, but they would not open the door because they were afraid. James Stewart, 1183. While they were locked in the storeroom, a Jeremy Mullen knocked on the door to get in. Jeremy was with Mike Kish, which is odd as Kish himself doesn't say he stayed behind with Mullen. Huh. Brandy Wiseman, 4750. At about 12:20, 1 hour after they entered, they barricaded the room on the instructions of police. Jeremy Mullen came to the door between 12:20 and 12:30 p.m. It's a curious time. He asked them to open the door and told them he was going to help them, but they did not open the door because they were afraid it might be the gunman. In a short time after Jeremy left, there were knocks at the door. She knew it was the gunman at the door. She said they could hear them reloading their shotguns and other guns in front of the door and began shooting at what she thought were appliances in the kitchen. She said that she had her watch on and that this occurred at approximately 1230 hours. So again, were the shooters dead by noon or around noon? That's curious timing there. Michelle Huff, 3358. There was one person trying to get in and she doesn't know if it was a student or one of the shooters. That person put a school ID under the door to show who they were, but they still did not let this person in as they didn't know if that was really who was there or not. This person came back 3 times trying to get in. So this is kind of creepy because this is really creepy because Mullen didn't state this, did he? Because from his own report, this is document 3812, Jeremy and several others hid in the bathroom in the kitchen. He explained that there were shots and explosions in the kitchen and cafeteria. He heard voices from the vents or the ceiling. Eventually, he and others exited the restroom. He tried to get the people in the closet to come with him, but they wouldn't respond. He went out due west to the west door of the commons and hid behind a blue car with a sheriff. He then ran to the soccer fields. He also recalled smoke coming in under the bathroom door, which prompted them to leave. Jeremy saw no large duffel bags on Monday or Tuesday. So he did state he tried to get the people to come with him, but he didn't say he came back 2 or 3 times. That's kind of weird. Did someone observe him doing it once, and then it really was him the first time, and then not the other 2 times? At what point did he doesn't mention sliding the ID under the door. I mean, this is some really shoddy reporting. Someone should have asked him, how many times did you go to the door? Did you slide your ID under the door? It's just really weird. Joel Hatfield, 3256, stated this. Joel stated that someone knocked on the door and wanted to come in. He stated that this person slipped his ID under the door, which read Jeremy, but that they did not open the door for him. He stated Paul Andrews still has the ID to date. So Paul Andrews took that ID and never returned it? That's kind of weird, too. And why would the person say, help, they're after me? Because if he's just trying to get them to leave, the shooters aren't after him at that moment. Michelle and Joel were not in the DEPEW group. They were in another room. So Jeremy tried to contact people in at least 2 rooms, not the one that he told the cops about. And almost all of the ear witnesses said he was trying to get in, not get them out. Like Mullen, Brett Kostelnik stayed behind while Gorton and the rest of the group made a break for it at about 12:15 p.m. Like Mullen, he attempted contact with more than one room, showed the occupants his student ID to gain acceptance, and told them, at least initially, he wanted to come in while telling the police he was trying to get the occupants out. What? So what was really going on back there in the kitchen? Let us consider several different possible scenarios. Scenario 1. Mullen and Kostelnik were alone in the kitchen, either trying to get in or get people out. One problem with this is that neither of these two mentioned the other in their interviews, though they were in the same place, doing the same things at about the same time. Another problem is, why would they want to enter these rooms? If they were as threatened as they alleged, they could have followed the others out or simply returned to the bathroom whence they came. Plus, they spent way too much time out there in the open, knocking on doors, passing ID cards, if the shooters had really been that close at the time. Scenario 2. Could DPO Lights have been right when he suggested that the people claiming to be students and passing IDs under doors were really the suspects? And allegedly the suspects are in the library at this time, or at least Harris and Klebold are. Who knows how many other suspects are elsewhere. Perhaps Mullen and Kostelnik, or even dead at this time, not even alive. Perhaps Mullen and Kostelnik did a quick pass and left. Kostelnik climbed into the ceiling, somehow leaving their IDs behind where the suspects found them. But most of the students thought the two really were who they claimed to be, and neither reported leaving their IDs in the cafeteria. And though rounds were fired in the kitchen, no rounds penetrated the rooms, and no one said the suspects were trying to shoot the locks to the doors they huddled behind, which suggests that killing these trapped students was not the main purpose for the gunman in the kitchen. Plus, the timeline is a problem, as this scenario had to have happened after about 12:15 p.m. when the kitchen bathroom group, Gorton, Mullen, and Kostelnik, decided to leave. Not to mention, according to the official timeline, are Harris and Klebold dead at this time? And this is the same problem for scenario 3, that Mullen and or Kostelnik were taken hostage by the suspects in an attempt to gain entry to the rooms. Another problem is why the two weren't immediate victims of their captor's wrath when it became clear no one was going to open any doors. Note also that nowhere else did suspects make any serious attempts to get at students' faculty behind locked doors, making an attempt to gain entry here in the kitchen at this relatively late time in the siege all the more unlikely. So let us consider scenario 4, that Mullen and or Kostelnik were hostages of SWAT itself. I don't mean the first official team that entered the faculty lounge at 1:09 p.m. and began breaching doors in the kitchen at 1:26 p.m., according to the Governor's Commission report, page 74 of 188. I am talking of an unofficial cleanup team, perhaps that early entry team that went in within 20 minutes, as the sheriff's office at times claimed. Here's what Daniel Gorton said, document 3158. We heard the police radios after about half an hour. So this would have been between 11:50 a.m. to 12 noon. I looked out and saw some SWAT officers inside, and I decided to stay put for a while. Gorton revised his ID by the time of the El Paso County investigation as one of their IO states. He informed me he later learned that people in the cafeteria he thought were SWAT officers were in fact Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris. Does anybody buy that? Depending on how you read this, it could also be seen as a sly endorsement of his own original ID, because he pointedly did not say his original ID was mistaken, only that he later learned, in other words, someone like the cops told him what he saw. And a lot of investigators did that to a lot of witnesses. Did Mullen and Kostelnik run into the same group when they tried to leave? Were they then drafted into doing an impromptu reconnaissance of the kitchen area rooms, the purpose of which was to locate any surviving gunmen in this area, and then to make sure they were not captured alive within the school? For whatever reason, reports of hostages began to emerge. DPO James Collier, document 7789. At 12:20, he hears of a hostage barricade situation. It was right about this time, 1 hour after the students entered the kitchen office, 11:20 a.m., which is when they entered, so 1 hour would be 12:20 p.m., that Brandy Wiseman says that they started barricading the room with sacks of flour and such. Since the cops knew about this from DPO Lights, as he was in contact with DEPEW at the time, one wonders if the source of the hostage part of the situation wasn't also Matt DEPEW reporting what he thought was going on the other side of the door. DPO Greg Slater, document 8640. Our rescue team began providing cover and assistance in hostage rescues. Those rescues were being initiated from the cafeteria area of Columbine High School. Wow, those are damning reports. So is it true that there was all this shooting in the cafeteria, but it wasn't with Harris and Klebold? The trouble with SWAT. The trouble for the people in the dishwashing room and the kitchen office did not end when the good guys finally arrived and evacuated the students and adults from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. by all accounts. The people in the other two rooms, the faculty lounge bathroom and the kitchen bathroom, had already left by themselves. DPO Lietz, document 9444. During the time the SWAT teams were moving in, the mood in the room became very difficult. End quote. Contemporary media accounts do it more justice. They describe a sense of pure panic in the kitchen office as those inside thought the gunman had come back. This is very strange because Lights gave them plenty of advance forewarning that SWAT was coming in. Laverne Helm, document 3296. Heard shots until about 10 minutes before she was reached by SWAT. That's very curious. So that's over an hour after the alleged deaths of Harris and Klebold. Matt DEPEW, 2839. Matthew stated he told Officer Lietz that he was having second thoughts about who was at the door. The SWAT team members began ramming the door. James Stewart, 1183. He heard SWAT officers busting doors. End quote. Why SWAT would take such measures is mysterious. For 2 hours, they had known through telephonic contact from DEPEW that there were no suspects in his room, the kitchen office. And Brett Kostelnik had at one point accessed the dishwashing room via the ceiling tiles, knew that there were no suspects in that room either, and he had probably told this to the police when he ran out. According to the final report, quote, one of the SWAT teams, while searching the cafeteria and then the kitchen area, breached 2 locked doors by firing several rounds into the locked mechanism, end quote. These gunshots, whether shot locks or not, probably didn't help much, but do they account for all the reports of gunfire even as the rescues were taking place? Brandy Wiseman, 4753. They, the DEPEW group, finally opened the doors and found it was the SWAT team. The SWAT team said that they would escort them from the building, told them to stay down and shut the door. She said that they then heard what she thought was the SWAT team exchange gunfire with the suspects and a yelling at them to get down, end quote. So this is, again, 1 to 2 hours after Harris and Klebold are allegedly dead in the library. Who is SWAT having a shootout with? Adam Kyler, 2441. They were unsure if the gunfire was from the police or the suspects. Kent Foncannon, 3001. Heard shots while being escorted from the building by SWAT after 1:30 p.m. John Curtis, 2788. Curtis was in communication with Andy, the campus supervisor. Andy told Curtis that a SWAT team had entered the building. At one point, they saw shadows outside. Whoever it was said it was okay to come out. As Curtis started opening the door, he heard a gunshot. So the trouble with SWAT here in the kitchen is basically this. There is a disturbingly seamless segue between the bad guys and the good guys, which seems to be the trouble with the investigation as a whole, now that I think about it. Now, here's the thing, though. If there's multiple SWAT teams, is this just friendly fire between incompetent SWAT teams? I mean, I don't know. This is all really, really weird. Sophomore Jason Bear hid in the science hall with his class until being let out by the cops. Excerpt from the York Daily Record, Thursday, April 22nd, 1999. Quote, the class heard the sound of adult men, so they took a chance and opened the door. Quote, everyone put your hands on your head and run. If you don't, you will be shot, they said. So Jason led the class down the stairs and through a cafeteria, end quote. Star Viego posts this. So after having to fear for their very lives for the previous 2 or 3 hours, the victims are now subject to death threats by the good guys. And you know what's weird, though? Like, how many follow-up interviews did Jeremy Mullen and Brett Kostelnik do? Because, I mean, this is all curious. I mean, the conflicting accounts, all the issues with the SWAT. Again, is this simply a covert operation? Do all the puzzle pieces sort of fit together? Were the SWAT teams not aware this was a covert op, so they were sent in not knowing? And they exchanged fire with covert op members, and then later told, obviously, not to mention that to anybody. And again, high rate of suicide for first responders and law enforcement and SWAT team members. So if they weren't told about the covert op and they didn't know about it until they were there, and then there's gag orders across the board, would that lead a lot of SWAT team members to commit suicide? Again, I'm just theorizing here. I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. There's just a lot of strangeness around this particular shooting with elements, anomalies, coincidences that you simply do not see in other cases. That's the point here.